Hello, welcome to the Midlife Pilot Podcast, episode 35, and it's a podcast all about flying in midlife. And this is not our normal format. Things have been a little crazy here at this live recording tonight of the show, but we're bound and determined to make it happen, and we've brought in our whole community of friends to help us pull this thing off. So we're glad that you're here and listening. My name's Chris Moran. I'm known as a Midlife Pilot on YouTube. I use the term pilot loosely these days as I've not really been flying very much, but someone who has been flying a lot is my Southern Command co-host, deep from the heart of Music Row in Nashville, private pilot, new airplane owner, tailwheel lesson number 1 coming up in 5 days. It's Brian Siskin. Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Well, we're here.
I mean, okay, so, let's just talk about first and foremost the joys of plane ownership. I'm going to ask you this right away, Chris. I feel like there's almost a correlation between the more planes you've been involved with or had access to, kind of like, I don't know, the less that you've been flying. Why is that?
It has felt that way. Oh, life, and got so many things. My youngest child is graduating high school next week, and it is crazy, and work and all of the other things, which we will actually talk about some of those tonight in this episode when we get into the stuff about other things in aviation that aren't flying that have
ways to get involved. Because I think that this a little bit ties into we did do an episode a while back that was sort of you've got your license, now what kind of thing. And certificate. And I think there's a lot to that. There's a lot of different ways it can go. Everybody's in a unique situation. But I think that both of us are at least a little bit further down the line from that kind of freshly minted. We're newly minted, but not freshly minted. And, I think that we've kind of been finding different paths and different avenues. And as you get more involved in flying after your certificate, you naturally start to fall into different sort of communities, or hopefully you do. And if anything, this is one for sure. And, it can really amount to a lot of things that maybe you didn't foresee. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been doing, and then, some things that other people have done that are outside of aviation, or not outside of aviation, outside of the immediacy of your own sort of flying and your own flying pursuit. And I think that that's a really interesting phase when it just starts to open up and become more cooperative and community-based, potentially, hopefully, and all that. So yeah, and I think that you're probably an incredible example of that, in the sense that the idea, and we've talked about your club and the things that you've been doing, but and we'll get into all that. But I just think that you have an incredibly rich life in aviation, even with no recent flying. You don't feel disconnected from it. So we'll get into that. First, though, we're going to do this thing called housekeeping. Do you think that we should get more professional and produced? Because listen, there's other podcasts that you leverage soundboards and sound effects. I've got all this stuff. I mean, we could do anything.
We could. We could, but I think what is somewhat intriguing to me about the way we've done it is just how it has kind of been, completely natural and conversational and not really that structured. I like a good structure. Believe me, I've spent a lot of time, much like you. I do this a lot, like for real, for like paying gigs. Like live television and sporting events and production. I appreciate a good production about as much as anyone, but this has been a nice escape from having to do that one more time for one more thing all the time. So I'm good with it.
Yeah, likewise. We spend most of our working lives otherwise making things presentable and nice or whatever. So let's not do that. But I will say that one of the things that we haven't done enough of, we started to do again last episode, is read some reviews, because I want people to realize that we see them. or at least I do. They come to me, and you know, it's nice to be reminded that we're not just talking into the wind. There's been a massive uptick in our podcast lately, and I'm not really sure what it is. I think it's actually because we have more and more episodes, and so when people get in, now they're starting to kind of go back through, and it becomes this kind of compounding thing. So I guess we have to start being more accountable for what we're actually saying. But I'll just read. Here's a really good one. Chris Goodwin, Pensacola, says, "Great show. Hey y'all. Hey y'all. Hey y'all. I'm Chris
for me.
Hey y'all. I'm Chris from Pensacola. I love y'all's show. I'm actually in the beginning stages of PPL training, and I really enjoy listening. And y'all really keep me motivated. As much as I'm Southern and of the South, it's actually kind of hard for me to say y'all. I don't know why. Y'all keep me motivated, and so I mean that's awesome. If we can be the slightest bit of motivation for anybody for anything, great. Even if it's a motivation to stop listening to podcasts.
Fair. That's awesome.
It really is. And then here's a simpler one. The cowboy perspective. Love the show. Keep up the great content. Okay, so that's nice and succinct. The last one I want to read that's really cool is HP Cowboss. Relevant, helpful, and reassuring. 47 years old and working on my private pilot certificate. I live in very rural America. This podcast is like having a couple buddies that you can listen to. That's been there and done that. So, I mean, we've only been there and done that as much as, we have. I don't think we should not be any source of information for people, but maybe just topics of conversation. I mean, Chris, are you a CFI?
Am I what?
Are you a CFI?
No.
Oh, man.
But I will be before I retire, Lord willing.
I can't wait. So I could come up there and you could do my flight review or just whatever. Like that would be. Can you hurry up and do that?
Yeah, I'm working on it. Not really. I'm not working on it.
Oh man. So in terms of the only other housekeeping thing would be just to go press buttons and do the stuff and say things and whatever. So anyway, enough of that. So when we were talking about things outside of or things beyond in aviation that you can kind of do, ways to get involved. I think that presupposes community, and I think that for a lot of people, at least for me, training was a very solitary experience, and then it's been sort of me moving out into the community. But what's been your how do you feel like if you had to explain to somebody who's training right now, or somebody that's maybe a newer pilot? That's looking to get involved, or it doesn't have to be purposeful. It can be anything. But what would you say to them?
I think it's funny to have met so many people that have done this now. I think everybody's experience is so uniquely different. Like it depends on so many factors, like the airport that you train at. Are you in a school, or are you Part 61 just with some freelance instructor? Like my training was fairly solitary. I mean, it was kind of like me and the guy I took lessons from, Tyler, was who I knew kind of for the bulk of my training as far as aviation is concerned. But I'm in a little bit of a different place because it was all Part 61. And it was at this little airport in Fairmont, this uncontrolled field. And you meet people at these smaller airports because you just you drive back down past your hangars and you spend some time in other people's hangars. You just meet kind of people as you go. And then I had some unique opportunities to fairly quickly, as I got my private pilot certificate, was trying to start a flying club. I mean, that's not an opportunity that everybody's going to have. I'm going to talk more about flying clubs later because I have some significant ideas about that. But I also had the unique opportunity to join the airport authority board here that runs this airport. And then shortly thereafter, at the beginning of this year, was appointed president of the airport authority. So there's a lot of things. So like I get to kind of be behind the scenes of like, I filed my first couple NOTAMs in the last few weeks, about airport things. So like I know that process now, like I can actually like create and kill NOTAMs for our airport. And, But I think I do think everybody's journey is unique. Like I know other people who've taken, like people that have joined our club and are getting instruction in our club. Their experience is wholly different than how mine was, because now you're surrounded by like the 35 other members of this club, and you're coming to club social events, and you've already met all these people who are doing the same kind of thing. And I think there's a ton of richness in that. And they get some other experiences too that, quite frankly, you don't get a lot of times in training. Like, so many of these students have been around for like oil changes that we do as a group. You know, a handful of us will come up and do routine maintenance on the airplane. So they're like getting to be part of that experience from the beginning. I mean, while they're learning to fly. I've met some people who are CFIIs who have never put their own fuel in their airplane, like are doing that for the first time, you know, after they're already double I's. And it's like, I don't know how you make it that far, you know, and have never experienced those things. So I do think it's pretty dependent on your circumstance, kind of where you're training, you know.
So did you say you were president now?
Of the airport authority, yeah.
Are you going to start doing sort of like propagandistic type stuff, like make a compass rose if it's in your likeness, or, you know,
no.
Is it going to go to your head?
Let me tell you, it's an interesting role, and I'm really lucky to have people on this board who have been on the airport authority for 30 years, you know, who really know the ropes of how you do all the stuff you do with the FAA to get your grant funding for the projects you want to do. Like, we're getting ready to do a big resurfacing of all the taxiways that the FAA is paying for. You know, but it's a paperwork exercise. You know, you hire the engineers and you figure out how to do it all, but it's cool to learn that stuff. But believe me, the glamour, there's no glamour in it. It's all very paperwork and running meetings. And like, I had a phone call last night from our local EAA chapter. They're getting ready to do one of their annual fly-in events where they do the what do they call the flights for kids? They do all of the youth, like the free
Young
flights.
Eagles.
Yes. Young Eagles. They got a Young Eagles event coming up, so they were calling to check in and make sure, you know, the airport typically helps them with fuel, you know, for their events and whatever. So we were kind of setting up logistics for their fly-in and cool stuff like that. You know, that's a part. I mean, that's one of the big factors of my like non-flying aviation involvement, is just kind of like managing the airport.
Have you done a Young Eagles flight?
I have not.
Yeah, there's some of those that are happening soon. One way that people I know can get involved, I haven't done this, but I just know that even if you're not flying, they need people at those events for, you know, it's all briefed out and everything, but they need people that are kind of, I guess, kind of these sort of guides, you know, people that will sort of take people to and from. And, you know, there's a lot of volunteer opportunities within even just that. And I think that even just kind of zooming out there's just a lot of events where there are volunteer possibilities that, you know, you can check your local airport for. I think that for some, and maybe this is a weird theory, I think there's a lot of pilots that are midlife pilots that are maybe a little introverted, or, you know, social club feels, I don't know, like a bit much. And maybe, you know, finding ways to sort of contribute or help in a softer way without it being like, join your local whatever, and then now you have to deal with 75 people you don't know. I don't know. There may be some considerations to think of like that, but I think that there's a lot of midlife people that don't have either a lot of time because it's not their principal pursuit, or at least we pretend like it's not. And then, yeah, I don't know. So there's something to that. So I guess we can kind of set aside that for a second, and we'll come back to it. But basically, you've got being involved in your airport operations, or running for president against Chris, calling him out on all the things he didn't accomplish last year that he said he was going to do, and he didn't do it. Get your Ross Perot boards out and pointers, and God, what a fun time that was. Okay, so
oh yeah,
so anyway, so there's all that, but then, you know, I think that it's kind of a mixture also of, you know, involving yourself can be asserting yourself from the point of view of just creating content, you know, or engaging with people that way, you know. And really all of this is a consequence of both of us doing that. We wouldn't be here. It becomes the genesis for a lot of things. So if you're a content creating person, or you aim to be. And by the way, this, for all those that are new to this Discord alternative realm that we're in for the podcast, this episode, there's a lot of resources and communication and talk about filmmaking and creating. And, you know, it's been amazing to see in the community that we have here how many people have not been lifelong creatives or even remotely creative, maybe in their endeavors, and have been really stepping into aviation as a vehicle to create things. And, you know, people want to record their flights, but then what do you do with it? And why am I doing it? And for how long do I do it? You know, I think that creating, or even if it's just photography, or even if it's just sharing what your experiences are in any kind of simple way, doesn't have to be some big production, you know, but I think that that's a huge way to extend your involvement in aviation and connect yourself to other people and enhance your experience. And this is 100% living proof of that. And I can't even express how amazing it's been to have, and there's no word I hate more than synergy or synergistic, but I don't, is there a better word? I don't know.
That's about it. That's what it is, the word.
I hate this word so much. So anyway, that is happening in real time. It's happening right now, and everything's sort of amplified, and you can get answers to things a lot quicker if you just get involved into communities, and you can check yourself. And when you're doing something and you just need some trustworthy people to look over your work or your plan or whatever it is, helping you study, all the things, you know, just getting involved in any kind of a digital or online community and creating content are definitely vehicles for that. And you don't have to be, I feel like a lot of people feel that unless I'm doing something like, here I am flying over the Grand Canyon, or here's my Manhattan, you know, Hudson River corridor flight, or who cares? Like, if you're doing this, it's amazing, and everybody's got their own experience and something unique to offer. So I would say that those are a thing. And then I don't know, Chris. I mean, I know that you've created a lot of content. You're the reason that we are here right now because you created all that content. Hopefully that's not backfiring for you.
No. I love, honestly, I haven't been flying nearly as much, and I haven't been making content nearly as much, but I definitely I'm loving the evolution of what this has kind of become. Like the communities that we've kind of been able to surround ourselves with have been awesome. I mean, this virtual community that we've got is far exceeds any thing I could ever have imagined it had become. But I also wanted to say that, like, I haven't had a lot of time, and sometimes the time or the money to like fly as much as I want to. It doesn't mean I haven't been at the airport though. Like, I think there's value. Like, I may not have time to come up and like get all my cameras out and pre-flight the plane and go for a flight and come back and refuel it and put it away and get all the cameras out and blah, 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 blah. But like, if I have a half hour, an hour that can pop up to the airport, I'll do that and check on the planes, or just be around and see some of the other club members who are here flying, or some random neighbor of a hangar who's working on his plane, or make friends with the mechanic at your field and spend some time hanging out in the maintenance shop. You've got an hour for lunch just to come up and be around. Like, I just love the whole atmosphere of it. And honestly, I think I've learned a ton. I've just learned so much just by being a hangar rat, you know, just hanging around and just people always say, they come up here and say, you're up here again, you know, are you flying today? I said, no, not flying. I'm just here to see what's going on and say hi to everybody and hear your stories of your flight today. And like, what did you guys do? And how was that? And, you know, it's, and I think, speaking of being introverted a little bit, and like, it is hard to, like, at this stage of life, to make new friends. Like, that's just hard, and to get out and meet people. But the nice thing about something that we're also passionate about, like aviation, is that you have a real easy jumping off point of what to talk about. I mean, you don't really have to worry about having, like, you're going to meet somebody and have nothing to talk about. I mean, we all have the same thing to talk about.
You can just mutter airplane.
Right. And then that'll set off an hour conversation. So like, I do think there's value in meeting others. And I think a club, you know, I wanted to say this about flying clubs. I've been thinking about this a lot today. We don't have anybody that uses it in our club, but a lot of flying clubs, like, even for those of you who like own your own airplanes and like you don't have a real value of joining a club for the flying part, a lot of clubs, including ours, have a social tier membership, like where you can join the club as a social member greatly reduced dues, and basically you just get to be part of this community and come and do the social events and like be around and like have a network of people to talk to and join up socially. So like even if you have your own plane, you're not going to fly these clubs planes. It's a great vehicle to meet other pilots and, you know, have some friends in your local community in aviation to meet up with.
Yeah. I'm really envious that you get to have that environment, because I'm sort of split between two airports and it's just not the same, you know. I don't get to, if I lived where my airplane actually resides, then I think I would get a little bit more of that. But even then, like the hangars where my plane is are on the opposite side of the entire property of the airport, isolated. You have to taxi down a runway to get to the FBO, and one of those kind of deals. And so it takes 10 minutes to drive around to go to the FBO. So I don't really have that sort of just, you know, mosey up to the small airport and everybody's just, yeah.
You got to come up to Fairmont and visit. Like this is like the kind of deal where like we go through the side gates, you know, to get in, and we drive our car literally across the taxiways and down the taxiway to our hangars. And then we're back here in this, you can't see it from here, but we're back in this corner where all three of our airplane hangars are together. We have this huge area of grass where everybody can just kind of park. And we have like cookouts and get togethers back here. We just open up all three hangars. There is just like camp chairs all over the taxiway out here between the hangars, and we got a big grill. The club has a huge, I mean, we'll just have these big gatherings where we'll have 30 or 40 people, families, you know, it's not just the pilots, it's the families and everybody just hanging out, and it's great. We do that 3 or 4 times a year, and it's just a great atmosphere.
Well, just when I thought I was remotely connected to the aviation community, and now I feel sad and dejected because I don't have anything close to that.
That's the benefit. I mean, there are benefits of operating in a small town, uncontrolled airport like this. It's just basically you kind of have the run of it, and it's easy in and out. It's there's no rules, you know, like it's, you know, I mean, there are rules, but you know what I'm saying? You basically have the run of it, and it's been so great to watch that grow too. That's
keep your bonfire away from the MOGAS.
Exactly. I'm not flying a ton, but the other stuff is it is as rewarding, I think, for me as the flying is.
Yeah, you know, and I think also what I've been sort of migrating toward is, I don't know, and there's several people in here that I know enough right now to say, you know, I've heard a lot of different things about people's motivations for flying. Adam, you know, said very, you know, sort of fun, I guess it was what do you call it? Like the sunk cost fallacy of, you know, if I get a license, then I'll have to use it kind of thing. And, you know, I thought that was actually kind of profound. It's like, I'm just going to assert myself to do this thing, and then I got to maintain it. So then I'm doing it, and that's enough. You know, there's a lot of other things going on in life. You know, I think a lot of midlife people are perhaps in that scenario, and you kind of go through the phases, you know, of your training and in and out of this and that and the other, but then you get to the point where you're getting out there, you know, you've always got like the next thing, but then you kind of do that, and then you're like, what's the next thing? I feel like it's been so self-reflective and such a sort of, I don't know, humanistic pursuit for me that it doesn't mean it's not going to continue to be that, but I feel like I'm interested more now in any kind of functionality that I can get out of it. That's not just taking family vacations, but more like, what can I do with it to help, or you know, give back, or things like that. And so one of the things that I've been involved with in the near term, and everybody's that's in here is probably aware of this, but we'll just treat it like nobody's heard of it, because the larger audio podcast doesn't know, if you're not in the Discord, the top secret Discord. But so I've been involved with an organization called the Freedom Aviation Network, and you can go to their website, freedomavationnetwork.org, and they can explain it better than I can. But essentially what it is think of it as like angel flights for people that are being human trafficked. So instead of taking medical patients or people that are needing treatment in those ways, it is getting people that are being trafficked away from their scenario so that they can get free of that and get what they need. And I did create I did a little bit of video work for them, and then they just had a huge event here at the Smyrna airport, and it was amazing. To hear firsthand the conviction of the people that are doing this and why they're doing it, and seeing the board there, and then also some of the other sort of correlated volunteers for various kind of organizations that are part of the chain of getting all this done to get people out of these situations. It's probably the most fun I've had, with a lot of people crying. It was really emotional. It was really interesting to see how just deeply concerned people were, and how it feels like a drop in the bucket, but you got to do something. So anyway, they're getting a lot of momentum really quickly, and you can volunteer there, freedomavationnetwork.org. And I'd like to maybe have one of them on here at some point to more so articulate what they're doing and how they're doing it. And it's a little bit new, so they're still getting their sea legs, I think, for a lot of the things. But they need pilots all over the country, and then once they get a certain amount of pilots in an area, then they can start servicing that area. So if you're looking for something to do with your flying that is a little bit new and a little bit different, and definitely needed and definitely cause oriented, then I would recommend looking up freedomavationnetwork.org. So that's been a really cool thing, because I don't know, being at the event and you see, it's like, I've been around enough to see different people from different flight schools and different, there's all these different entities and levels of operations and people and flying for different reasons. To see something like that come together, where you see the organized aspects of the aviation and the local community coming to support it, and then EAA, and then, freelancers, and I don't know, just all these different people. It's an interesting thing to see all this coming together in a way that is a cause that is bigger than, you're not ATP, so I've got nothing to talk to you about, or
Mm-hmm.
So it's been really cool. So I would definitely recommend, if you're looking for a thing, this applies to anybody in the United States. This is something that everybody can do to help.
That's awesome. If you're listening to this audio podcast, it's a little different format. We had to abandon our normal platform tonight, so we ran just to come into Discord. I think, Brian, don't you think? I think if anybody else that's in the Discord live recording has anything to talk about involved with aviation,
let's take advantage of the peanut gallery.
Yeah, you guys. If you have something you want to add,
raise your hand in the chat.
Flip your camera on, unmute yourself or something, and feel free to share it here. It's a good opportunity to talk about ways to be involved. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that I'm not thinking about that is out there.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe this will become something we do from now on. Oh, look, there's the Sage.
Sage is here.
We need sound effects.
Please, no sound effects. I wanted to bring up an extra point. You had mentioned Angel Flight, and you mentioned that I volunteer for it a lot. When you do that, and I imagine it's going to be the same when you do for the Freedom Aviation Network or for any charitable pilots and Pauls, even, that there's a huge feeling of gratitude after you complete a mission, and the gratitude that's shown you by the patients. There's no other feeling like it, really. I tell all the patients, I get more out of the flight than they do with that. And, some great things happen. I got an invite to fly on a L-39 because I volunteered for a mission. So, that wouldn't have never happened. So, I just wanted to throw that out there, that it's amazing how much you get back when you give your time for something like that.
So what you're saying is, anytime you volunteer for Angel Flights, you get a complimentary L-39 experience. Is that what you're saying?
I am not saying that, but you heard it from Brian Siskin. So if you don't get your L-39, see him. He's already given out his email address. So
I think that's so cool, man. And you're such a mensch. You're such a solid person, and so to hear, it's clear you're resonating with that gratitude, and to experience the full circle nature of working so hard to fly. it's great when you're starting and you're like, I was able to take my family up, or share with them my accomplishment, but it's all kind of self-directed, right? There's a point where going outward with it really means more.
Well, it also opens the door to other communities. So Chris is talking about his community that he has on his airport, and you and I live in pretty busy class deltas, and it's just too big. You don't have the space to do what he's able to do. It's like being in a large town and being in a small town. But through this last Angel flight, I met a guy who is 77 years old and has flown all these crazy airplanes to all these crazy places. And we found out after the fact, he's had dinner with Chuck Yeager and Bob Hoover at the same time. And now I'm going to be camping out at his hangar. I don't want to go flying. I just want to sit there and talk with him until the wee hours of the morning. But that's one more person that I've gotten to know through volunteering through something like that.
Mm-hmm. It is like, I've had moments where I've met musicians that are idols of mine, or people like that, and I've always learned the most from them about music by talking to them about actually anything but music, talking to them about baseball or anything. Right. Just being in their presence and just getting a sense of how they conduct themselves, how they think, so that to be close to greatness, that's another opportunity, right?
Yep. I'm going to bow out. Looks like Josh wants to join.
Hey, Josh.
Hey, thanks guys for doing this episode. I feel warm and fuzzies because this is what I suggested on the Discord. So
it was all you. This is your topic, man.
No, one thing I wanted to mention that has been really big for me is, first of all, online communities like this. So we're preaching to the choir, obviously, to the folks who are already here in this chat right now. But for folks listening, there are other ways to get involved with this community, and this community has been super helpful. Just one of the pillars of my aviation experience right now. So that's huge. The other one is my aircraft type club. And if you're an aircraft owner, certainly, and even if you're not, if you're just a renter, getting involved in the type club for the type of aircraft you fly, whether it's a Cessna or a Beechcraft or whatever, there are just massive libraries of content online for all of these types of airplanes. There are people for decades have been asking questions, having them answered, having events, meetups, safety seminars, and those types of things. For me, it's COPA, and I've been really active in going to events a couple times a year, and it's just been a really big part of my learning, and also just getting a chance to meet and talk with other people who are doing something, really similar to what I'm doing.
There's also a massive quantity of content in those boxes behind you, and I know that you're in a stage of life at this moment that nobody enjoys these moments. But I also would like to point out that this wonderful community that we've created, not one of us has offered to come up and help you move.
It's okay. I don't think you guys could help anyway, but I'll bring. I bet I could fit a lot of my stuff in Sage's plane. I'll say that much.
For sure. Well, good luck with the move.
Thank you.
No, that's a really good. I didn't even think about that. The type club. That's a huge point of connection and symbiosis, because it's what you're flying, and you get to be part of the Cirrus Club, which got its own special flavor.
I think all the types have people who are really excited to help out, especially new pilots, who are flying these things. There are people who've been doing this for 30 years, 50 years, who would just love to answer your question about, oh my gosh, my pitot tube's doing this weird thing and I don't know what to do. There are people who jump right in and help. So I found it really
So Josh, you jump in when somebody says they got an issue with their pitot tube and you're like, dude, I've been there. Have you considered not turning the pitot heat on with the cover on it?
Pitot cover. Yeah. That's my particular bugbear there.
No, so one of the things we were talking about having an episode at some point about let's just have like a full on, here's all the dumbest stuff that we've done. Maybe I'm jumping the gun on that, and I'm sorry to out you for that mistake, but it's one of my favorites, and thank you for being a good sport all the time.
It's my pleasure. I'm happy to be the whipping boy, so thanks.
I definitely have a list. I have a list of my own.
Okay, save it. We got this is good. We're getting into the next episode here. It's gonna be a fun one. We should probably do it again like this, so we can just round robin people. And one other thing I wanted to mention that I think is a really neat thing is as much as organizations and clubs and all that are important, there's a lot of just little one-off opportunities that kind of come about. One thing that's coming up for me, I just got an email the other day about how they want some people that I won't mention, an organization would like me to film or document a World War II veteran who has a bucket list item to fly again at 83 years old. And we're gonna, I guess take him up in a Cirrus or something, and get a vet back in the air. I mean, just those little, because when I think about aviation and history, it's such a funny window because it seems like it's been so long, but flight is such a new thing. And then you think about the people that were doing this in the 40s, and I mean, just imagine if, I don't know. It's heavy to think about.
I talked to somebody today, a member of our flying club, who's working on he's building time. He's going to try to go to the airlines or have a career as a pilot. He's a fourth generation of his family pilot, and his uncle was here tonight. He took his uncle up for a flight, who told me, he said, the funny thing when you mention that today, when you talk about four generations, you're actually talking about from the origin, basically, because these are 20 to 30 year generations from birth to next generation being born. So like his fourth generation before him was like in the origins of flight, and then their family has been doing it forever. So we talked about that a little bit tonight. That's another one of those random being at the airport talking to a guy kind of stories. But yeah, it is crazy, isn't it, how short of a time it's really been.
Yeah. I once met a musician from Africa who was a 72nd generation player of his instrument.
Process that for a minute.
I'm also just interested in how you actually know that, but I'll just take it. I mean, but when you hear him play, it's this Humani Diabate. He plays this thing called the kora, which is it's a really neat instrument. But it's like a huge gourd thing with strings, and it's one of the most beautiful sounding instruments I've ever heard. But anyway, Tumani Diabate, check them out if you can spell it and find it. But anyway, so all right, what else we want to get into here? Anybody else want to jump in and extend this grievance of a podcast that we're coming up with today?
I see lots of mute icons, but these guys are on it in the chat tonight. If there have been links, and One Dog Geek just came up with the spelling of the musician's name.
Oh yeah,
they are on it.
Yeah, I had a funny experience with with Tumani Diabate. This is just a funny story. So when not aviation related at all, but hey, we're here, whatever. It's just a funny thing. Like, I went back to school for fun in my 30s as an undergrad in New York City. And I'd been doing music my whole life, but I'd never taken a music class of any kind. And I decided just for fun to take a music appreciation class. I don't know why I did this. Anyway, I go in on the first day, that's it. And the professor's, super smug kind of music educator guy with the, and he's got this whole thing. He's playing this music as everybody walks in, and I don't know, just the whole vibe put me off right away. And I just sat there and I'm like, okay. And then he's playing this music, and then finally he turns it off, and he's making it the first moments of class of the whole semester very dramatic. And he sort of turns it down. He's like, all right, can anybody tell me anything about what was just playing? And I mean, even if it's just something about the instrument sounds like this, or, he was already just, and the class, how class is in the beginning, kind of like this pod that we're in right now, where people are like, I'm not going to raise my hand, first, the initial part of class is so awkward, where people just don't want to be the guy that says anything. And he keeps probing the class and asking, he's just, I don't know, I was bothered by him. And it kept happening. And then eventually I just did the exact jerk move that you could possibly do. Where I just raised my hand, and I admit this was just not cool at all, but I couldn't take it anymore. I just looked at him and I said, "That's what you're playing is Tumani Diabate. He's a 72nd generation core player from Mali or whatever." And, and he just kind of jumped back. He was like, "Wait, how do you know that?" And I said, "I just played on a record with him."
Humble brag.
And then I realized that was just not necessary. And then we got along after that, but
that's cool.
Yeah.
Very good.
So now this no flying thing, Chris, come on. It's right behind you.
It's coming to an end. I mean, not tonight, but it's, the weather has been so beautiful the last couple of days. It's coming to an end.
I'm through the hard part of my annual. Granted, we haven't gotten the oil sample back yet, but we're through the hard part of what's obviously good or bad or ugly, and it's been okay-ish for the most part. And now we're into the autopilot install phase, and I'm the smallest guy, so I'll be the one that's crawling into the tail to mount that bracket, and I'm probably going to dislocate my shoulder. So
good luck.
Yeah, that's going to be a really great learning experience of like, don't buy a plane unless it already has exactly everything that you're ever going to want, because otherwise you're going to have to dislocate your shoulder to install it.
This will be much better this way. You'll look back on this in years and say, "Man, I'm glad I got to do all these things to my airplane."
Of course, yeah. And just to see, for yourself that there's not corrosion and, just all these places. But yeah. And then, wish me luck on my completely pointless tail wheel endeavor. I'm just doing it to be better and really be as good of a stick and rudder type of pilot as I can possibly be. And it's something to do while I cannot fly my own plane.
That'll be good.
Yeah. So if we don't have anything, the chat is cracking me up right now. I thank everybody for being here and putting up with the weirdness, especially from me, but also from technical difficulties. Chris, what are you here to apologize for?
No, that's it. I hated we started off that way tonight, but like you said, first time in 35 episodes, we've had a technical malfunction. So I think pretty good track record.
Not bad. And I'll have to say, like, it's been crazy to sort of actually keep track of it. This podcast, for whatever reason, has been doing really well. And, somebody was telling me the other day, I listen to your podcast while I'm jogging. And I just thought, I feel bad because I don't even jog. Maybe I should be jogging. Like that was what I got out of that. It was very nice. No, so I just appreciate everybody very much. We're just kind of sending it and improvising, and you guys being along for the ride means a lot. So cool. Well, let's just, we don't have our music, we don't have our whole vibe. We're gonna have to put it in after. Wait, so the music will come in the audio podcast right now. Feel the outro vibes. All right, send us out, Chris.
Thanks for plotting with us tonight, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody who joined the impromptu Discord chat. It's great to talk to everybody, and we'll do it again in 2 weeks.
Will we?
Lord willing.
We'll do our best. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.